I'm Floyd Wooderson. Welcome to another session of my personal memoir, Wolves of Hemp Street. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those bell notifications to make sure that you don't miss new chapters being uploaded weekly. Thank you for having integrity and tuning in. Chapter 8. This Must Be the Place. September of 2018 had really kicked it up a notch. The only thing coming off everyone's lips was, harvest is coming. This may seem like a no-brainer, but there are two big events of the year that stand out in the world of farming, planting, and harvesting. Both of them are huge hurdles that need to be planned for and thought out weeks, if not months, in advance. There's no doubt about it though, harvest season trumps planting season in terms of sheer scale, physicality, and preparation. We had no choice but to evolve and grow in order to match the tsunami of labor that was in front of us. It was no longer going to be an 8 or 10 person company, we needed 20 to 30. Recruitment was in order. Julian and Ralph went right to work hiring temps. This really wasn't going to be a problem, the hemp industry was attracting everyone. Each day it seemed that a new person or group was stopping through. The length of their stays differed, as some were there solely to marvel at the farm, while others were there to work. Investors were taking a look at the crops, and newbies were busy weeding and grooming plants. This gave Teddy the freedom to step away a bit to get security in motion. He ended up hiring a freelance security camera installer and set up a security hub in the spare bedroom of the Rocky Road house. One day, Julian had a friend coming into work. Let's just call him 007. But not for obvious reasons. In this situation it stood for 0 work ethic, 0 motivation, 7 smoke breaks. Instagram stories, naps, and cigarettes were life. Nonetheless, we greeted him with open arms as we did with anyone and gave him a tour of the farm, showing him the plants, the house, current projects, and unfortunately, the apple and pear tree. We had made the mistake of telling him that it was totally fine to grab an apple or pear whenever he pleased but didn't expect him to actually harvest them. At lunchtime on his first day, he came into the house with 2 grocery bags full of apples and peaches. He was nice enough to ask if we wanted some, but when everyone declined he said that he was taking them home for his kids. Seriously? I mean, I had no say in the matter. It wasn't my house, it wasn't my company, and they weren't my fruit trees. The apple tree was huge and had plenty to go around, so that wasn't as concerning. But the pear tree was much smaller. What once bore around a dozen or so pears now had 1. Look, I get it. Providing for children costs money, but it's a respect and common courtesy thing. You don't just go into a new house or property and start taking everything. It was his first day. That's what made me and others mad. Not a good first impression. It wouldn't matter though because he would eventually get fired. I guess too many cig breaks and naps in front of Kelly didn't sit well with him. 2 other newcomers were Aaron and Hunter. Aaron was also a friend of Julian's, and Hunter was a friend of 007's but much better. He was in his mid-30s and had worked in the corporate business world while Hunter was a young buck at around 22 or 23. Brad and Aaron hit it off immediately, while Hunter gravitated toward Teddy and me. Both were hard workers and weren't afraid to get their hands dirty, cementing their stay. They had arrived just in time for a huge project we had ahead of us, creating a place to dry the plants. Unbeknownst to me, in order to accommodate the acreage of plants, we needed a great deal of space to dry the plants before they would go into the next part of harvesting. At that time, we had no large barn to use and 30 acres to work with, so we started with 6 rented shipping containers. That's it. We had them put together in pairs about 50 yards apart along the width of the field. On the inside of each, we zip-tied multiple walls of trellis to the ceiling, utilizing as much space as we could. I couldn't tell you how many plants we were estimating to be able to fit into one, but it was a constant discussion. Could we fit half the field? A quarter of it? Me being a newbie, I was mistaken in thinking the 6 containers could fit it all. Boy, was I very wrong. We had no choice but to think bigger. Much bigger. We needed fences. Large drying fences. To start, we used an auger attachment on a tractor to dig holes roughly the size of the holes dug for the fence at the front of the property. The only difference was that instead of only 3 or 4 feet tall, this was going to be 10 feet tall. And instead of wood crossbeams and wire grating we would roll trellis down from the top, stapling and zip tying where needed. The laying of the poles is quite self-explanatory, but the only difference was that we weren't using concrete. The trellis, however, was actually quite ridiculous. We had 2 rows of wooden beams, laid on either side of one of our main driving paths along the length of the field, just wide enough to fit a truck through. Several of us would hop in the bed of a truck or on top of the cab and staple or zip tie the trellis to the posts. At certain points, beams would squeeze closer together, making it damn near impossible for our trucks to drive through, not to mention making us nervous when hanging the trellis. We weren't really thinking ahead. The job took the better part of a week, and when it was all said and done, it unfortunately resembled a concentration camp. When days were overcast and dreary, the fences from afar looked like some sort of prison camp. Not exactly welcoming. Mid-September brought an awesome weekend of music highlighted by a Saturday night by none other than the String Cheese Incident. Being from Colorado, they have gained immense popularity over the years and, from what I had heard, always put on a great show. They were always in the same sentence as STS-9, Fish, Widespread Panic, Grateful Dead, and much more. String Cheese basically checked all of the boxes for the so-called Colorado sound, encompassing many aspects, such as jam band, electronica, funk, bluegrass, and psychedelic. To be honest, I was never really into jam bands. Just wasn't my thing. But, I thought, what the hell? I've never seen them. Let's do it. It turned out to be quite a group attending. Teddy's parents who were in town, Faye, Brad, Julian, Billy, Julian's other friend, Justin, and Trish, both of whom were about ready to start working for us. The night started out smoothly with bluegrass band Yonder Mountain. Teddy, his parents, Faye, and I lay out on the lawn, drank beers, laughed, and watched as the sun crept lower in the sky. All around us were probably around 4,000 to 5,000 people from all walks of life. Teens, adults, parents with their toddlers, hippies, bass brothers/wooks, jocks, and the list goes on. Not one person had a frown on their face. As the sun finally disappeared behind the mountains, Teddy, Faye, and his parents called it an early night, and it was now my time to catch up with the rest of the crew, spread out and scattered amidst the drunk and drug haven under the neon lights. By this point party favors must have taken effect within the crew, as it was like herding giggling cats. I found Brad and Julian first in line for beer, so I joined them. The rest were lost within the waves of concertgoers now trying to get close to the stage as the main act was minutes away. "I can't believe you've never seen them before," Brad said sharply. "Nope. I just haven't really been into the jam band scene, to be honest," I returned. "Yeah, but they are so much more than a jam band. They're just so fucking talented and stand out completely from, say, the Dead." At that point, a giggling and smiling Justin appeared. Now, I hadn't had any conversations with him before, so I didn't know him. But for a guy in his mid-40s he seemed to know how to have fun. He had the attention span of a 5-year-old, finding cool things to laugh at and people to interact with before moving on to the next. It was hilarious. He was loving life, and others were loving his energy. With frothy beverages in hand, we headed back toward the music, in which we finally met up with the rest. Billy, who didn't drink, had a huge smile on his face and was grooving alongside Trish, with her Mountain Sun beer in hand. The libations were kicking in for me, as were the joints passed around within the crew. It's that moment when you start feeling the music. Yes, that sounds corny and vibey, but y'all know what I mean. When one of my favorite songs, and one of String Cheese's standard covers, started to play, I knew I was home. This must be the place rang true as I was out with good company and good music. Yes, this must be the place, I thought with a smile. Chapter 9. Harvest Moon. The days were starting to cool, nights were getting shorter, and frosty, foggy mornings were becoming normal. Every morning the pungent fragrance of cannabis ran long through the valley as all of the hemp farms in the area had started liberating their rich notes of terpenes. Buds were ripe and showed off their beautiful pink pistils against a backdrop of multicolored, autumn hemp leaves. It was here that taboo hit once again. This plant, something that you were taught growing up, was said to be detrimental to your health and a gateway drug leading to further substance abuse and inevitable death. Across the world individuals are severely punished, imprisoned, or put to death because of this plant. And here I was, in a bubble of the United States where I could smoke weed in peace and grow thousands of hemp plants outside in the ground, and it's perfectly legal. It's something I couldn't quite grasp. I was part of an operation that a very select few could partake in without overwhelming fears of persecution. Case in point as to why so many were trying to join our crew and get into the industry. Late September hit and it was time for the plants to come out of the ground. Teddy had transitioned me into full-time security along with Hunter and one of Teddy's friends from stunt school, Trent. Teddy had continued working with the security contractor and we now had several security cameras up and running around the property, fixed with infrared to see during the blackest of nights. The newly converted security room in the house would remain for on-duty personnel, with the monitors broadcasting live feeds from the outside. We had multiple cameras on corners of the house, including one that pointed right at the front gate. They would run 24/7 for constant surveillance. It was also time for a little shuffle in the rocky road house. The downstairs was on its way to being renovated into a full grow operation rather than just its current half, meaning I would be kicked out of the basement and moved into Julian's RV. Brad, who had been living in it since I took his spot in the basement, would pitch a tent at a corner of the property. Hunter and Trent would be joining me in the RV, making it our off-duty nest for the security team. Because the RV was backed up to the main field, it was in a great position to jump out at a moment's notice if so needed. We had just received word on the street that a farmer on the other side of town who Kelly knew very well had 2 of his greenhouses cleared of drying hemp in a single night. It equated to thousands of pounds worth, and at that going rate of $35 to $50 a pound, the numbers added up quickly. Huge loss. That lit a fire under Teddy. As the famous quote goes, the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. Learn from others' mistakes or shortcomings so that you don't follow in their footsteps. It was time to kick it up a notch. The security shifts ended up working out like this. One person would be on in the morning from 5 a.m. until 1 p.m. and would be relieved at 1 p.m. That person would go until 9 p.m., and then 2 lucky individuals would do the graveyard shift until 5 o'clock the following morning. Every couple of weeks we would rotate so that everyone would have a chance to differentiate their shifts. First go around, Trent was to have the morning, Hunter was to have the afternoon, and Teddy and I had the graveyard. Brad, with his tent popped up in the corner by an actual graveyard, how fitting, said he would remain on high alert even while he slept and be the guard of his corner. All of us were fitted with walkie-talkies, and the security team had 2 12-gauge shotguns at our disposal, which were bought by Teddy. They were fitted with rock salt rounds as an initial deterrent and then buckshot as a worst-case scenario. We didn't want that. But the story from the farm down the road not only spooked us, but new stories of people getting tied up and robbed of their crop or hemp seeds were heavy on our minds. And yes, it was said over and over again by others on the farm, at the end of the day, no plant is worth your life. Well, yes and no. At the end of the day my life wasn't worth a plant, but on the same notion, we put so much into this that we wanted to protect it at all costs. So, not only was Teddy getting more serious about the security of our field, but the overall mood from the superiors tightened up as well. The joint operation between K and G and F2F worked day and night to figure out the logistics, organizing the harvest and security of our 2 farms, Sunflower and Rocky Road. Through the help of Faye, lunch was catered and served daily for all the workers. At whatever location they were at, sub sandwiches would be served one day, pizza the next, Chinese, then Mexican, and so on. All of the bosses were very deliberate about taking care of the farm hands, making sure they were fed and well taken care of during the long and grueling days/weeks ahead. The first day of harvest/security, and the many that followed, I relaxed in the RV all day, trying to rest and switch my sleeping schedule. However, it was damn near impossible with the loud noises from all of the harvest activities unfolding just outside my window. The huge crowd of workers, made up of plant choppers, plant picker-uppers, box truck fillers/organizers, and box truck drivers, were scurrying through the length of the field rapidly. The clock had started ticking, as the small harvest window was closing. Snow was right around the corner. When the box truck was full, the whole crew would go unload the plants in the containers, which were all filled that first day. From then on, they were hung on the creepy trellis fence and the process started all over again. I felt for them, knowing that this was only day 1 of many to come, as I finally drifted off around 4 p.m. The sleep was poor. Excitement and nervousness kept me from really falling asleep. I would daze off for maybe 45 minutes at a time, before waking up for 15 and then repeating the process. In the back of my mind was the idea that we really didn't know how high the chances were that something sinister would actually happen, but that potential for danger gave me sleepless anticipation. When I looked outside at 8:40 p.m. or so, the sun had just set, giving off that beautiful purple and orange glow. The day laborers were all gone, signaling it was time to roll. I started with some push-ups to get the blood pumping, and from there, I suited up. Dark jeans, my trusted Dr. Martens, odd green hoodie to match the odd green drop leg holster, black beanie, and last but not least, my trusted and loaded sidearm. I walked out of the RV confident, focused, and serious for the night ahead. Teddy asked, "How you feelin'?" "Hangin' in there," I replied. "Didn't really sleep much, but I think adrenaline will keep me going." "You?" Teddy responded with the same answer. He went on to elaborate more. "So, what the guys did earlier was set up fire pits at different areas of the farm which will be our posts from here on out. There are 4 of them, one right here in front of the house." He then turned around and started pointing. "Second is over there close to Tai Chi Ashley's, third is in the far corner, and fourth is down in front of Brad's tent." Brad will stay up a couple of hours and keep the flame going, then we are on our own to keep it lit. The 2 front gates are closed and master locked. The main thought behind the fire pits was to give off the illusion that there indeed was a presence and that the owners of this hemp were not messing around. Some of the fire pits could be easily seen from the road, perfect for warding off any unwanted nightly passerby. Teddy would drive around in Brad's truck while I took Julian's farm truck, all the while rotating from fire pit to fire pit every half hour, feeding the flames as we went. With the use of fire starter and firewood every night for weeks, it was definitely not a cheap deterrent. That first night went on like you would probably have expected, quiet, chilly, and prolonged. Hunter, even with his afternoon shift, stayed up with us well into Teddy and I's shift. Being a kid from the good old Smoky Mountains, he loved everything outdoors, and so we decided to run some live drills with him as our guinea pig. It was our security version of hide and seek or ghost in the graveyard. Nostalgic, childhood games that he loved. Hell, we all did. He would go and hide deep among the hemp plants and once settled would give us a call on the walkie saying, "Ready. Come find me." We would then drive slowly around the property, looking in between the remaining plants, trying to spot him with our Luxpro 1000 lumen spotlights. It was a challenge to find him, so much so that he helped us out with hotter and colder calls. Who knew one could hide so well among plants resembling Christmas trees? We even elevated the game by testing our response times to a potential intruder. Teddy and I would wait at the front of the house while Hunter hid and then when he was set would yell over the walkies, "Bogey alert. Northeast corner." Teddy would then take off one way and I the other, in an attempt to prevent Hunter from escaping our view. We did this every day for the first week and a half before it started to fizzle out. We were ready for anything, or so we thought. Although that first night was calm after our live drill fun, it was most definitely ghostly. Staying awake past 2 a.m. was damn near impossible. Shadows were all over the place, playing little tricks whenever my concentration slipped. Off in the distance was the sporadic coyote yipping being carried by the wind. The thought of the recently watched A Quiet Place didn't help in suppressing my imagination. Is something or someone watching me? What's out there? I need to be deathly silent. Brilliant movie, but not great for someone all alone in the corner of a field with the witching hour approaching. My eyes remained on a swivel all night, but just like the song presented in the movie, I would easily be drawn to the beautiful and full harvest moon above. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap that bell notification to be reminded when new chapters are posted each week. And until next time, don't forget to have integrity.